let's talk Bumblebee. Alright, so Bumblebee came with a lot of skepticism when we first saw the trailer for it. I tried to remain as optimistic as possible, but let's be fair, we've been burned by the Transformers franchise on at least 5 different occasions at this point. I am happy to report that I finally get to talk about a good Transformers movie. And now we're not talking about the 1984 animated movie. We're actually talking Bumblebee here. Bumblebee is actually a good Transformers movie, and much to my surprise, because I totally walked in expecting this to suck. I really expected this to suck. Because it's not being directed by Michael Bay, but it's being produced by Michael Bay, and Michael Bay has his way of kind of tentacling his way into everything and giving it that Michael Bay flair, which means explosions all over the place, really shitty dialogue, and a shitload of fan service. But I noticed during the end credits that executive producer for this film was actually Steven Spielberg. So maybe it was Spielberg marching over to Michael Bay and just going, "We're gonna do it this way, fucker." And maybe that's all Michael Bay needed to actually make a good Transformers flick. So I did have some pros, some very big pros for this movie, but I also had a couple cons to it. But I'll be the first one to admit they're kind of personal pet peeves for me. I was really hoping Bumblebee was going to be kind of like that clean slate type of deal when it comes to the Transformers franchise, that we're going to start over, we're going to start fresh. But there were a couple nods to the previous movies in this film. They weren't terrible, but it was enough to make me just kind of go, well, crap. I guess those exist now. But overall, just the pacing of the movie was very well done. Dialogue is kind of what you expect it to be, especially when your co-star is John Cena, of all people. He hasn't really hit that stride in the acting world like The Rock has yet, but I do see him getting there. He did have a couple lines of really snappy dialogue that I thought were absolutely hilarious, even to the point of, not to give away too much because I try to keep these reviews spoiler-free, of him sitting there and they're talking about kind of having an alliance with these 2 Transformers that have shown up to hunt Bumblebee here on Earth, and him just kind of sitting there being the voice of reason out of everybody in the room going, their names are the friggin' Decepticons. Does anybody else see an issue with this? So he was kind of like on that cusp of like, good or bad, let's just kill them all because we're better off without them. And then the government, you know, kind of being the whole government, and it being set in the 80s, so the Cold War is still a thing of like, well, we should help them because then they'll give us their technology, and if we don't help them, they'll give it to the Russians. And it's like, okay. Alright, so we're going this route. Cool. Thankfully, the government people were a very small part of the movie. The focus is mainly set on Charlie, who is our female protagonist, sidekick to Bumblebee in this entire film. And the focus is very much focused on her and Bumblebee, and then the 2 Decepticons that are hunting Bumblebee, and everybody else is just kind of background. And I think that really, really worked. They kept the focus where it needed to be, and that made for good storytelling. It helped keep any scene dragging down to a minimum. And it worked. It really, really worked, and there's so much I want to talk about in this film that is just going to be spoilerific. So I'm really trying to refrain from doing that for you guys because it just came out this weekend. So it could be possible that a lot of you haven't seen it yet. So I'm trying to keep it spoiler free for you guys. But I will say this. 2 things that I absolutely loved about this movie. This movie sold me within the first 5 minutes. The first 5 minutes will make you sit there and go, that is the Transformers. That is what I remember. That's what they are supposed to look like. I'm in. I'm all in. Let's do this. And, I mean, those of you that watch my live stream, you know I am a humongous fan of Stan Bush and You Got the Touch. I am happy to announce that You Got the Touch made it into another Transformers movie, and just the timing of it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. I laughed my ass off and cheered all at the same time. It was absolutely phenomenally done. And that unfortunately also kind of leads to one of the big gripes that I did have about the movie, is that the appearance of all the Transformers They look like the Transformers we grew up with and remember and love from the old Generation 1 days, with the exception of one. And that's Bumblebee. Bumblebee has maintained his movie appearance through all 6 of the films now, which I find a little jarring to a point. It doesn't make sense to me of like, okay, you're gonna change how everybody else looks, but you're gonna keep him exactly the same, other than he now transforms into a Volkswagen Beetle. And that just didn't make a lot of sense to me. It's like, okay, if you're willing to change everybody else, then change up him a little bit. Make him a little more faithful to how he looks in the cartoon, the comics, etc. Speaking of which, this one, I don't care if it's a spoiler or not. Optimus Prime looks like Optimus Prime again, and I couldn't be happier. That little face shield thing coming in when he's fighting, that's there all the time now. So we are back to the days of like Optimus kind of being like this, and when he talks, it's basically doing this shit the entire time. And it's like, okay, that's the Optimus I know and love. Thank you for bringing him back. Now, the thing that kind of tied everything to the other movies, which kind of disappointed me a little bit, is eventually Bumblebee does transform into the Camaro, and I'm just kind of like, it's not a big deal. And like I said, this is a personal pet peeve, but it just comes down to, like, I want you to push as far away from these other 5 movies as you possibly can, and then that one scene just went, they all count now, and I'm just like, shit. Alright. But this was a phenomenal step up and return to form for the Transformer series, and I really hope this guy that they got to direct this time, and this woman that wrote the script, and Spielberg executive producing the movie, bring this team back for another movie, because I'm totally down to watch another one from these guys. It was fantastic. If you get some free time, I know there's a lot of good movies out there right now. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Aquaman, Vice, Welcome to Marwen, Creed is still in theaters. Take some time and go watch Bumblebee. It was totally worth it, and I'd be happy to go watch it again. But thank you everyone for watching. I appreciate the support. As always, let me know what you thought about Bumblebee down in the comments section below if you've already seen it. And if you like what you watch, please hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon. That way you always know when I have new content for you to watch. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.